Hey, I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and today I want to introduce you to somebody who reached out to me. Your name again is?
Ryan Slaviero.
Okay, Ryan Slavier, who did some time in state prison, and somehow or another we got connected. We're going to hear that story today. And he asked, well, I'm going to let you just start all over. I told him that one of the things that I like to do is teach and inspire guys who are in prison. And so it's always helpful to bring as much information as we can to guys in prison about what they're going to experience when they come home. So Ryan, thanks so much for reaching out. Why don't you tell us, besides your name, how it is you and I connected?
All right, thank you for having me. I've seen your videos on Big Hurt's channel, and when I was in prison, a lot of the advice that I got was from guys such as yourself, because that's who I was able to, sit down and gain information from, because they were the most driven and they had a better outlook on life. But a lot of those guys aren't coming home. So I saw you and I figured, since the avenues that you're in and things like that are the avenues that I'm going to be going down as well. So I figured we can, help each other out and network.
Okay, well, I'm happy to share with you. There's, as I've said all the time, I'm setting this stopwatch so I can watch, because I know only have 28 minutes an episode in the state of California's prison system. So I'll have this thing, this stopwatch going at the same time that we're talking. So yeah, I'm very happy to share with you my story. I'm super grateful to you for even having an interest in this work. Because that is something I like to do. I know that people in prison get a really bad message about how to serve time and what to do with their life. And as a result, a lot of them face challenges. Why don't we start before getting into me? Oh, I definitely want to give a shout of gratitude to Big Herc and his channel at Fresh Out. Because a lot of guys in prison wouldn't see that channel because they don't have access to the internet. I'll have him on the show so the guys in jail and prison can meet him. But it's a big YouTube channel out here. It has like 500,000 subscribers, and he profiles a lot of people who went through the prison system. But his audience is more for consumers. How did you find Big Herc?
It was basically just, you try to find people you can relate with. And I saw him and a lot of our childhood stuff that we went through, things of that nature. It was just kind of easy to find common ground and things like that.
Have you had a connection with him directly, or just watch his channel?
No, just indirectly, just here and there, little comments back and forth, just sending support and everything his way, because I appreciate what he does. He wakes up a lot of people to the reality of the situation.
Yeah, and so tell us a little bit about your experience. Where are you from, and how did you get into the system?
I'm from Antioch, California, and I've been in the system since a juvenile.
Where's Antioch? Northern Cal?
The Bay Area.
The Bay Area. The East Bay, right?
Yep.
By Martinez, that area?
Yep.
Yeah,
just
that's what I thought.
Further east.
I used to live in Petaluma, so I'm somewhat familiar with the Bay Area when I first got out of prison. So Ryan, you said you started going into the system as a juvenile. Walk us through some of those experiences.
Yeah, as a juvenile, I turned to basically find acceptance in the streets, and they welcomed me with open arms. But from the age of 17, I got my first strike at the age of 17 for assault with a deadly weapon with great bodily injury. And I had a public defender at the time. So the way things worked out, I found out real quick, never trust a public defender and to always get a paid lawyer, which we'll touch on that later. But they played my case out so far out that by the time I was sentenced, I was almost 19. And so when I pled out, I didn't know that my juvenile strike would carry over as an adult until I went to prison and found that out later. So I did time in the juvenile system, went to Byron, and also did a little time in CYA as well in Chad.
And was that your only time of going into the system, or did you have other experiences?
No. Since I was released from there, I went down for countless gun charges, countless dope charges, but all those charges, for whatever reason, I don't know, act of God or whatever, I always got 72-hour released, and DA never pressed charges on the thing. So I got away with a lot up until I didn't.
And what do you mean when it says that you didn't? What happened then?
I was a little too comfortable with getting released because I thought that, oh, the DA's too busy. They're not worried about me. And as time went on, things got a little bit more violent as things went on. So by the age of 24, which is what sent me to prison as mistaken identity, I was shot at a park, and I knew who did it, but I didn't know why they were shooting at me, and I couldn't return fire at the time. So I held a grudge, and that grudge lasted only about 12 hours until I reacted. And I caught the person going into their house, and I discharged rounds at them. Ultimately, I did hit them, but my gun jammed. And it was weird. Before I shot, I had a cousin with me in the car who told me not to do it because it was broad daylight. And right before I shot, people can say, you know, it's fake or not, but right when I was squeezing the trigger, I heard a whisper in my ear of, I can't identify the gender or the voice, but it just said no. And it was already too late. Rounds were sparking out, and there was plenty of witnesses. So about 7 minutes go by, I make it home, I hear it over the scanner. I'm trying to, you know, get out of there as quick as possible. I already have U.S. Marshals at my door. They've been watching me for years, and they saw the whole thing as well. Because on my way home from the crime, I was in my 79 Camaro, and a silver Camaro happened to want to race me while I'm on my way home. Well, I didn't know that was a U.S. Marshal because he was there in that silver Camaro, and he was the one who took me down.
So that puts you into a sentence of how long?
6 years. I was fighting 25 to life at first. My victim did not want to show up to court and take the stand, even though he already said what he needed to the police. I hired Cooper Law Office out here in Oakland. I had all three of those guys represent me, and they did a good job. But because they knocked it down from 20-year offer to 6 years and take a strike, so I knew I wasn't going to get any better than that. I was in there with people that, you know, they were doing a lot more time for this very similar crime. So I just took it as a grace of God.
And where did you serve your sentence?
Out here, Contra Costa County, Martinez. Then I was transferred over to San Quentin, and then from San Quentin, Pleasant Valley. And then at Pleasant Valley is when I saw the parole board, you know, when you see the counselors and all that. And that's when I found out that my juvenile assault with a deadly weapon strike, because that's what I ended up having to plea out to for my adult case, was an assault with a deadly weapon with great bodily injury likely to produce death. They enhanced each other, and I didn't know that, and neither did my attorney at the time. So I had to go back to court, and they threw another paper commitment at me on top of it. So instead of adding more time, what they figured I would do was hang myself. They said, we're not going to add more time. You're still going to do the 6 at half. You took a strike. You're going to be on high risk, high control for 5 years. If you mess up at all on the 5 years, you're going back for 12. So basically sentenced to 18, but only had to do 3 out of the 6.
And so how long have you been out of prison now?
Since 2015.
And so it's already been 5 years since you've been home.
Yep.
Tell us about the experience of, well, before you get to that, you made a comment earlier about not having much respect for public defenders. Tell me why. Because
they work, their main job is to get a position working for the court, not defending you in any way. They have too much of a caseload, and all they want to do is help assist prosecution with conviction. So they're not looking out for your best interest. They'll tell you this is the best offer, and it's not. They don't even have time to meet with the prosecution. They take whatever the prosecutor recommends, and that's what they feed you. And really, you're left in the dark unless you go to the law library yourself and represent yourself. You wouldn't know any better, or you have to hire paid attorneys. And with my case, that's what I did, was until my attorneys were retained, a public defender illegally went through and was representing me when I told them I already had counsel, and went through the motion. So we had to start all the way back over once my attorneys were retained. But what that public defender was saying is, you know, life is on the table. Your best bet is going to be 20 years, and there's no wiggle room. You might as well take the deal now. You'll never win in trial. So that's very disheartening to hear from somebody you think should have your best interest at heart, but they don't.
So I want you to know, like, I respect your position and all. My observation on this really is that, as somebody who went inside and works hard to try and change this system, is that really a lot of times I think it's on us as defendants and as people to understand. And I'm glad that you gave people who are watching this in jail and in prison your experience and your observation of what happened. I will say I've had a lot. I'll just give you a contrasting view. I've had a lot of experience in working with public defenders who do a lot of work. There are some on each end. Like, there are a lot of people that are paid attorneys that'll take you for $100,000, $200,000, and you don't. I mean, I paid $600,000 for a lawyer when I was in 1987, when that was a lot of money, and he completely misled me, you know, and I ended up getting a 45-year sentence. Whereas it's funny because in my situation, I think a public defender would have gotten me a way better deal than I got. But it's I think, you know, to blanket somebody as these people are bad and these people are good, we get ourselves into trouble. And so I just want to give that flip side on that.
Yeah, because I have to agree with you, because when I was going to court, a lot of guys did have public defenders that they fought tooth and nail for them. So to just say all of them are bad, I can't.
And some on each side, right? Some paid attorneys will take you for a lot of money and not do anything for you, you know? And so if we understand that, I think that what we'll do is we'll say, well, what can I as an individual do to help myself the most? And maybe to help my defense attorney help me. And that requires, you know, some work. That it requires work. Like you said, go to the law library. Or I even think more than going to the law library, what's really important, Ryan, is to just tell your story. Like, if you can, and I've interviewed a lot of judges, state and federal. And I always ask them, is there anything that a guy can do to prepare himself for the lower sentence, for a better outcome? And without exception, Ryan, what they all say is, I want to hear about you. I want to hear how you got here, what influenced your decisions, what you've learned from this, how you identify with victims. And if you can communicate that to me, you as a defendant, you're going to move the needle a lot more than whatever an attorney says. And I believe that, you know? So I think it's almost the same thing as what we're doing right now. We're really talking, I think that you wanted to reach out and talk about business and so on and so forth, right? Which is fine, but this is the same thing. It's about, you've got to sell yourself as an individual in all times. If you want to go into real estate, you got to learn how to sell yourself and sell the deal. You always have to sell yourself first. And that's the same thing if you're going into this system. If you're going into this system, what can I do to put myself in the best position? But I just wanted to say that because you said you know about public defenders. That's what I know. I know that it's never going to be somebody else that's going to argue for me or get me the best outcome. It's always going to be, how do I advocate for myself? Yeah. And so that's one, I wanted to respond to it based on what you said, because I just wanted, you know, and I'm open to somebody else's interpretation, but I really believe that we all have to invest in ourselves and tell our story. And so now I'm going to ask you that next phase of the question. Tell us your story about what it's been like during these 5 years since you've been out of prison.
Well, so before I went to prison, I had basically like a fairy tale life career going for me.
What was that fairy tale career?
I was a race car driver. I was fully sponsored. My car was being built, and literally I had to do nothing but sit in the seat and drive. And the second I went to prison, I got served all letters of sponsorships dropping out. They want nothing to do with me because of my situation and where I was at. So coming home from that, I had the attitude of, well, if I made it and got sponsored once, I'll put my own money back into it and do it again. It's not that easy when you come home and you don't have a place to stay. You have to put yourself up in places. rent from landlords who don't want to rent to you because you are a felon. And then you don't have family members that you can rely on as well either, because my mother died while I was in prison. That's all I had. So I came home to nothing. So it was just it was just a struggle from day one. You try to get odd end jobs, and the parole board will help you here and there, and they'll get you in the door with certain things, but they never work out. It's always they hire you for the tax credit, and when they're done with you, they're done with you, because California's at will termination. And I just saw that they were using parolees as kind of like a money racket because they knew that they get paid by employing us. I'm not going to say the companies, but I'm sure many parolees are used to that out here.
Tell us then about your journey in prison and what you did while you were in prison.
Basically, a lot of self-help books. I just wanted to expand my knowledge because while I was out being a knucklehead, I never really cared about school. Didn't really think too far into the future. And
how far school did you go through?
Just high school. I got a diploma by accident in the juvenile system because before I got sentenced, I took the GED ahead of time. So I wanted to try to get a little bit better leniency with the court, but they make you go to school in the juvenile system regardless. So I ended up getting a diploma in there that I just don't use because, I'd rather use the GED than a juvenile hall diploma.
Okay. Is that the extent of your education, was getting the GED and the juvenile hall diploma?
No, from there I just did trade work. So I did ASE certification, automotive service of excellence. So that way I can do body work and automotive repair. But there's also the challenge again, once I came home, you can't get a job in those fields because insurance agencies and stuff like that don't want to work with you.
So what jobs did you get? Are you free to talk about the jobs that you got since you came home and what the wages were?
Yeah, when I came home, first job was Goodwill, actually, for $12 an hour. I did that for about a year, and then I just couldn't do it, couldn't deal with it anymore. I had to make more of a living wage, so I was actually able to find a little mom and pop automotive shop that did take a chance on me, and I did what I could, but my time was ultimately up over there because when you're on high risk, high control parole, you may think nobody's watching you, but every day of that job, my boss got tired of me having the feds harass me at work, on my lunch break, everything. They just came just to search, see if I have anything, just because they could. And where I worked was right across the street from FBI headquarters. So my time got worn out there real quick, and they just had to let me go because they didn't like the headache of, federal agents coming in and messing up their business.
I can imagine. Why was the federal agency looking at you if you were a state prisoner?
Well, there's certain things that happen on the street that they're not happy about. And I was warned by them when I left the gate as well that if I got into one more situation, they would pick up all charges on my case.
What about are you familiar with the statute of limitations?
Yeah, but they were my literal escort to the parole office because they thought I was going to flee.
So I don't understand what that means. That still doesn't clarify for me why you have federal officers watching you if you came out of the state. And is that something that other people can expect?
Depending on what organization they're with, they can absolutely expect that.
I see. So you're saying if the government alleges that there is some type of organized crime or gang activity, that's the problem.
Yeah, and it doesn't just have to be a big organization. All it takes is 3 people. That's
right.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. 3 people and you got a problem.
Do you have the liberty to move to a different location and start a new life?
Kind of, yeah. I'm trying to get the wife on board, but she seems real set here just because she has sick family and all that. But that's the goal, is to get out of California for sure.
So you reached out to me with a question, and I would like you to just talk about it, and so that we can have a good working relationship here, and record it so that people inside. What was your question for me?
It was just really if I could just ask you for guidance because of what I'm going to be transitioning into doing, working basically for myself, doing real estate and things like that. Is you've done a lot of investing in the real estate market. You're already seasoned in it. So if I have any questions or anything like that, if it would be okay to reach out to you for advice and things of that nature.
Are you willing to kind of sell yourself and talk about what you're doing and why? Or when you're asking for questions, what is it that you're looking for? Because a lot of times, people can ask, well, I'd like to know the way to become successful, to do something else like that. And somebody can tell them, but they don't always want to do the work. Where do you stand on that front?
Well, see, I don't have a problem with the work, and I don't have the lack of vision on being successful. I understand that it takes time in order to get things rolling, and in order for you to make money, you have to sell. My thing is just on the back end of that is taking the money and reinvesting it, so that way my money makes money while I continue to work, and advice on certain things that I might potentially be investing in or not, depending on what the market is looking like at the time.
So when you talk about trying to build a career in real estate, what does that mean to you?
To be self-sufficient in real estate and become successful to where I don't have to worry about money, and neither does my wife, because I'm not going to real estate for for a regular job. I'm going there with the vision that if I'm not selling and making $20 million a year, I'm a failure. So that is my goal, is I need to do something and get it done.
So how do you do that?
Apply myself.
I think a lot of people would like to know how to make $20 million a year. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you are on that preparation line?
About a 4.
About a 4. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Why?
Just
what makes you a 4?
Because I don't have the licensing yet. Once I have the licensing, I'm all in.
What makes you think you need the licensing?
Well, because I have to hang my license with the brokerage company.
So what you want to do then is sell real estate.
Well, sell. I'm going to sell, and then as I sell, I'm going to invest and buy while still selling.
Okay, so you intend to earn a living by getting listings or by introducing buyers to properties. Is that right?
Yeah, and the reason I'm even going the real estate route is because I've already been given percentages of just referrals that I know of people who are trying to sell their house, who are looking to buy houses, things like that. And by putting them forward to people that I know that are already in the market, they would kick me down a percentage of what their commission was just for the referral because of how slow it was. So when I saw that a lot of these real estate agents are just kind of coattailing it off their brokerage and all that, I just figured, why am I going to keep putting money in other people's pockets when I can have these people pay me?
So are you aware of some of the challenges that you're going to have to overcome to get a license to sell real estate?
Such as?
It's a yes or no. Do you know the challenges you have to overcome?
For it to pass the law side and the educational side?
Not necessarily the educational side, but the character and fitness side. Are you prepared for that questioning of why you've got the character to get a license, being that you've come out of prison? Are you even aware of that?
No, I wasn't even aware of that part of it.
So you're not aware that as a felon, it doesn't mean you can't get a real estate license. Of course you can. My question for you is, do you know that you are going to have to overcome challenges to get your license? Did you know that?
I know there's going to be challenges. I just didn't know about the character that you're talking about.
So there is a provision in any type of professional licensing, such as real estate, accounting, law, working with the elderly, that when you go to apply for your license, you have to provide some type of statement that you've got the appropriate character to be in that type of work. Now, if you look at our channel, go ahead.
So it's basically selling myself.
It's the same thing we were talking about with a public defender. Okay.
Right.
And that was going to lead me to the next question. It's not easy to do, first of all. And in order to present it, you've got to be able to tell a very good story. And so a couple of things that I've just heard you talking about as we've been talking here for 24 minutes is the way that you are presenting yourself. When I asked you, how do you define success? I think you said making 20 million a year. Is that right?
You said what was my definition of success for the real estate.
Yes.
That's my ideal of success.
So these are questions that you have to think about, well, how is a statement like that going to advance my candidacy for success? But I want to say, first of all, we're already at 25 minutes. These can only be 28 minutes long. So I think this is a good opportunity where, as an introduction, we've got to understand who you are, Ryan. We got to understand how you got to where you are. I think we should do another episode for 28 minutes. And I want to address these things, but is it okay with you if we speak really openly and candidly, and I'll tell you, hey, this is what I've experienced, and these are things that I think that can be done in order to help you. And if we do that, we'll be able to help guys in prison and jail, and I hope help you as well, because it's a long. Are you a rock and roll fan?
What's that?
Are you a rock and roll fan? Classic
rock.
So you like AC/DC?
Absolutely.
So it's a long way to the top, my friend, if you want to rock and roll. Okay. It's a long way to the top. And today we're going to talk, in the next episode, we're going to talk about some of those challenges about what it takes to get to the top of real estate. And so, again, nothing you cannot ask me. I want to be able to ask you things, because that's the way we're going to teach guys inside. And then if you have questions that are specific to me, how did I do it? I'm going to be open and walk you through that, okay?
That'll be a good episode.
All right, well, we're going to close this one out right now. So I'm Michael with Prison Professors, talking with my new friend Ryan, who reached out to me after seeing us on the Fresh Out, I think it's just called Fresh Out show with Big Herc. And he's now part of the Prison Professors community, and we're using this episode to teach and inspire people inside. If you're watching this in a prison, hope that you stick around to get more insight. If you're watching this outside and you haven't subscribed to Prison Professors, I hope that you do so. We'll be back with the second episode right now. Thanks.